Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Ounce of Wisdom. I'm Ben Blankenship, owner of Accio Business Coaching and Advising, and I am looking forward to today. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Kelly Fry. Hey Kelly, how you doing?
Hey, Ben, I'm doing well. I always look forward to these weekly conversations. I can't wait to listen today. Today, we are joined by Max Hansen, who is an incredible CEO. He is the co-founder of an executive search firm called Y Scouts, and Y Scouts aligns companies with candidates based on skill, of course, but also based on culture, which I love. So I'm excited to hear how he has such a talent for identifying both talent and culture and making sure that he sees a retainable fit.
That's awesome. You know what? Actually, I've had the privilege of working with Max. I really look forward to visiting with him today. And what's kind of cool is before Y Scouts, he actually grew and successfully sold a recruiting firm for $50 million. That was a huge success. And yeah, it really is. And it really shows that he knows how to run businesses as well as recruiting for the executive roles. Uh, and actually, his experience is spot on for today because we're going to be exploring not only how do you recruit the right talent, but then also we're going to be exploring how Max and kind of the recruiting field is using AI to help leverage their businesses. So he's going to be a great guest to have.
That is going to be so interesting. I can't wait to hear just from his experience and all the success he has had.
Same here. I'm sure that what he shares will result in many nuggets of wisdom, not only for our viewers, but for our listeners. So with that, let's dig in. So Max, welcome to Ounce of Wisdom, and thank you so much for sharing your time and your knowledge with us. Really excited to have you here today.
Hi, Max.
Hi, how's it going? I'm excited to be here. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. So let's dig in. Today's question is really at the heart of what you do with executive recruiting. And I want to share a few statistics to provide some context, to provide to frame the question, right? And these statistics are provided by the talented group at Top Grading, and they're regarding the cost of mishires. And so based on their data, the cost of mishire for an executive can reach up to 27 times the base pay. And for mid-managers, up to 15 times base pay. And when you think about like really what goes into that, you know, it's the interviewing process, the assessments and the tests and bringing candidates in and bringing in your staff to be part of that process. And it gets into the base comp and bonus and stock and the cost of maintaining that person with a cell phone and a computer and an office. And then they don't work out. So now you have severance and outplacement and legal fees. And then there's the cost of their failures because they weren't the right fit and they might have really, messed things up. So, you start to think about all of that and you're like, yeah, I guess it could really be 27 times their base pay, right? And so with all of that in mind, what you do is find the right fit. So when hiring a senior leadership team member, what steps would you say all companies need to take in order to vet their candidates and set up their candidates for success?
Yeah. What a great question. And yeah, to your point, I think the fallout, and there's stuff that you can't even quantify. I mean, we're saying 27 times, but I mean, the disruption and, there's some stuff that's almost irreversible. Not that anything really is completely irreversible, but to your point, it's such a key thing. But I think when we think about senior level hiring, and I learned this, by the way, from being involved in a lot of hiring processes and learning a lot from my clients who were successful at hiring and hiring over 50,000 people in the first company that I ran. So we made a lot of mistakes and we also made a lot of great hires. So it's the culmination of what worked and then what didn't. But I think the first thing that I'd always point to is getting clear on what success looks like in the role. I know that's a very obvious one, but there's a process that I believe is critical. And I think Top Grading and the WHO, they kind of believe this as well. So there's alignment in these philosophies, is getting crystal clear on what success looks like in the first 10 to 12 months. And I think as we get a little bit more modern and the more modern days have come, this is becoming even more critical because you have to move so quickly. And with the way you do that, the process is important. So you really want a multi-stakeholder approach, meaning the people that understand the strategy of the role best, typically a leadership team, but usually a CEO or a board can help decide like who understands the strategy of the role best. We say 2 to 5 people, but they want to really answer the question, what does success look like in this role, particularly in the first 12 months? Like, what does this person need to achieve? And it's not necessarily a laundry list. That's what we're trying to get away from, because a laundry list is very hard to interview somebody to. So the way we think of it is the process is concentrating down the 3 most important things that this person needs to achieve. We call them success outcomes with corresponding key responsibilities. And then the question is, how are you going to measure it? And I'm sure as a coach, you run into this a lot. That's a difficult question for many people to answer, but it's certainly one that needs to be answered. So getting crystal clear on what success looks like in the role, in our opinion, is the most important piece. And then from a vetting standpoint, we're overcoming a lot of challenges with traditional hiring processes. People rewriting the resumes. Now you have people rewriting the resumes with AI, with your job description and sending it into you. So you have to be cognitive of like what you're putting out there as far as information. But so assuming you don't put every single thing that you want in your job description, which I don't recommend because there are people that will game that. The only way to overcome that from like on the front end is not to put as much information out there. And quite honestly, if you want to hire the best people, I believe it has to be outbound and targeted. Like that's the only way to get around people using AI, people gamifying the interview process, people rewriting their resume, and then ultimately people getting in an interview and embellishing what they can do, which we can get into that. That is more of an American thing than it is anything else. I've worked with people in Europe and people, for example, in Spain. They don't do that as much as we do. But as a hiring manager, getting clear on that. And then when you get into the interview process, I think it's really important to ask behavioral-based interview questions. And, we always bet on that somebody has potential. And I think we never should give up on human potential. Human potential is like all of us leaders are aspiring and, you're coaching people for potential. But when it comes to a critical leadership role, we have to find proof points in their background that gives us a high degree of certainty that they can achieve the success outcomes that we all agree to the most important. So that kind of gets into, kind of a little bit of the vetting. I won't get too far into that. And then, a couple other things when it comes to, process. I think candidate experience matters a lot in this. If you want to hire the best people, you have to have a good candidate experience. And I'm not suggesting that you have to cut corners at all. But what I am suggesting is being clear on what you're looking for and making sure you go find the best people and put them in the process and make sure that you maximize the candidate's time and you have a plan. Everybody knows what you're going to ask. You don't want everybody asking the same questions over and over in a clunky process where the person's having to jump in all of these interviews, because you would have to assume that they're in another process that might be slightly more organized than yours if that's the case. So those are some things that I just throw out as like just foundational stuff.
I think that's great. I'm tracking. Follow-up question for you. So I've run across in my coaching experience somebody that on paper and actually in person, they clearly have the right skill set. But there's a culture fit thing that's just not quite working out. How do you vet for culture fit?
Yeah, that's a great question. This is $1 million question. I think we're still continuing to figure this piece out, because you're talking about soft skills. And I think I always go to the simplest way to think about this is, at the leadership level, you're typically hiring somebody that's obviously going to be very influential with the entire team. And the first thing I, talk to leaders about, just to keep it simple so they don't get freaked out that it's too complex, is like, is this a person you want to spend a lot of time with? I mean, that's the first question is like, and if it's not, it's not, no, don't try to, put a round peg in a square hole type of thing, because nothing else really matters. You have to enjoy spending time with this person. At the end of the day, we're just all walking each other home, and work's work. So spending a lot of time, but I'll get a little bit more detailed. For us, we believe that the only way to culturally align somebody is to find out who they really are before you get into the details of the role and what you're looking for and getting into great detail about what you want them to do for you. And I know that sounds kind of odd, and we have resources to do that. But when we reach out to candidates, we let them know that we're retained and exclusive by a company that cares so much about the complete alignment around culture and competencies that we want to take them through a discovery process to learn more about them before we get into the details of the role to save them time. Now, I know that might be a mouthful, and I know people may be thinking like, okay, well, that doesn't sound like it could work for us, but it can. The point of it is we focus on the soft skills first with the candidate, and we truly ask them what they most care about and listen. And I think that's super important. I think people, they miss the point of it. They're like, oh, well, I have to post jobs. Okay, well, you have to post a job. Just don't put as many details about it. And, and then in the first interview, focus on them. Focus on what's most important to them. What are their strengths and weaknesses? What are the things that they want to do? What are the things they don't want to do? And focus on them first. Now, we have a little bit, we have a little pure view on it, is like, we don't want them to know anything about the role or the company. But it still works. To get cultural alignment, you really have to understand and demonstrate to somebody that you care about them first. And then you can start asking how it relates to you. I don't think it can be done the other way. I honestly don't think you can ask somebody or test them on like what they can do for you, and then at the very end do a cultural interview. I think people do it, but I don't think it's done very well if it's done in that order.
Those are truly nuggets of wisdom, Max. I thank you so much for sharing all of your amazing knowledge with us. By the way, we'll make sure in the comment section to leave a link to your website and any other resources. I know that you have some great stuff on your website. Any books or articles or tools or other resources you'd recommend to our listeners and our viewers?
Sure. I mean, I don't want to sign homework. We published the book in 2017. It's called Hiring on Purpose. And it talks about this process that I'm talking about. It'll get into a lot of detail. And again, what I really like focusing on, and I look at this as open source. Like, we wrote this on and published it in 2017, 18. We came up with the framework in 2012. And at first we were kind of like, oh, we're first at the sandbox. We want to keep it close to our vest. And then the more I started working with it, I'm like, you know what? The only way to truly develop, and I know I'm preaching to the choir when I'm talking to you guys, is put it out there, and we just need to execute it better than anybody else, or, execute it very well, just like everybody else does. But Hiring on Purpose is great. Our website's great. I've got a podcast where not all of it's hiring. So if you're looking strictly from hiring, but a lot on leadership stuff on the Built on Purpose podcast.
Love it. Max, thank you so much. I hope that our paths cross again very soon.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Ben.
We'll see you.
Thank you for joining us today for Ounce of Wisdom. We are so grateful to our experts and hope that this episode has been helpful to you. We'll be covering a variety of topics through our channel, so please take a minute to look around, like, share, and subscribe. Is there a topic you would like us to cover? Please comment below or reach out. Do you need help identifying pain points in your business? Check out our resources at www.acuo-bc.com. The link will also be provided below. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again on another episode of Ounce of Wisdom.